Well, thank you. Um, I apologize in advance because by the very nature of the theme of this event, my comments are going to be somewhat self-indulgent, since the theme is Who Am I? And I'm intending what I'm going to share with you primarily for the teenagers and young adults in the audience. So let's go. So who am I? I'm a lot of different people. Teacher, educator, an author, a journalist. I've spoken at 3 TEDx's prior to this one, which no doubt you'll question after you see this performance. I'm a lapsed jazz musician, software developer, consultant, professor, friend, step-parent, grandfather recently to Prince Theodore in the matching outfit. And I've had a great number of joyous accomplishments in my rather bizarre, untrod path of a life. I've been teaching teachers how to be better at what they do and make the world a better place for kids since I was 19 years old. I taught graduate school before I had a bachelor's degree. I worked in the first schools where every kid had a laptop computer and helped teachers all over the world make sense of the future. I created one of the first online master's degree programs. I've taught everything from preschool students through doctoral level. I've traveled more than 2.5 million miles, co-authored a book, earned a PhD in science mathematics education, have been to the Grammy Awards twice, 10 years apart, for a project I helped out on. One won, one lost. I've been invited to the White House. I've been able to work with many of my professional heroes. Seymour Papert, that's Jerome Bruner, Marvin Minsky, and I've also gotten to spend a great deal of time with some of the world's finest jazz musicians. And those two ideas of being able to spend time in the company of people who help me learn and bring joy and purpose and a sense of belonging to the world are really important themes of this talk. So who cares about what I think? How did all this happen? That's a photograph of me during my magician period. I went back and forth between wanting to be a magician and J. Edgar Hoover. It was kind of a troubled childhood. So some inconvenient truths. K-12 was a quite miserable experience for me. I realized around first grade that most of what the teachers wanted me to learn really didn't matter. And that turned out to serve me very well to this very day. When I was in 4th grade, I realized that if I painted everything black on a regular basis, I could get the child study team to come in and evaluate me all the time. And that was a lot more interesting than spelling or penmanship or the 5 kinds of invertebrates they were trying to teach me. Despite my miserable school experience, 2 things stand out. One is public school is where I fell in love with music, politics, computer programming. All the things that bring joy and purpose and meaning and beauty to my life were things that I learned in a public middle school in Wayne, New Jersey. And one of the reasons why I'm so passionate as an advocate for making schools better places for kids is because I'll be damned if anyone else will deprive kids of that quality of experience for future generations. School has a fundamental responsibility to introduce children to things they don't yet know they love. And I fell in love with things that I didn't know about because of teachers who loved what they did and who were expert at it. I always hung out with teachers, even the ones who abused me. I started Berklee College of Music on a scholarship. Then my considerable lack of talent caught up with me, and I decided to become an educator. I spent 7.5 years as an undergraduate, full-time, sometimes summers included. It's not because I was failing everything, it was because I spent 3.5 years taking courses that looked interesting and then found out that that wasn't allowed. You had to take courses that were prescribed. I don't regret a minute of that. I skipped my master's degree. I got a BA in elementary education. I earned a PhD in mathematics and science education by creating an alternative environment inside a prison for teenagers in the state of Maine. So what irresponsible advice can I share based on this bizarre career path and life trajectory that I've experienced? My simple advice is care less. Care less about prerequisites, the name of the university you might or will attend. There are 8 universities in the world that are hard to get into and tens of thousands of others where you can enjoy a fantastic education. You should find the place that suits you. You should apply to the universities that you have a reasonable chance of getting into. Don't just apply to NYU because it's easy to spell. Find the faculty member whose life's work is something that you care about, who might mentor you, and go there. Despite having a pretty solid C average in high school with 0 AP classes and SAT scores that were quite mediocre, there was never a moment of doubt that I was going to go to university after high school. That's one of the greatest aspects of the kind of Western tradition. We should care less about dubious traditions and conventional wisdom and other people's expectations and preparing for the real world. When I hear educators in particular talking about preparing kids for the real world, I know one of about two things is about to follow. One, the real world is really bad, and two, they have no clue what the real world is like. They have this cartoon version of it, that we're preparing kids for the past rather than an uncertain future. The best thing that educators can do is teach kids how to solve the problems that no educator has even anticipated. So what should you care more about? You should care more about yourself, others, politics, the planet, and find ways to bring joy, beauty, peace, and purpose to your life. You never have to ask, why do I need to know this, when you're doing something that matters to you? And asking, why do I need to know this, is a legitimate question. Your teen years are the years when you become Olympians, chefs, dancers, musicians, scientists, politicians. Even if you're crummy at it, and more importantly, even if you change your mind later. You get to do that. I don't have a laser pointer, but I'm the creepy trumpet player with the maracas dressed like an Italian busboy in that photo. You know, every kid should be prepared for college and the real world, even if they decide to become a plumber. But schools shouldn't decide who gets to make those decisions. And adults should stop lying to children about what it means to be prepared for university and the real world. So I want to tell you about my daughter Yvonne for a moment. I have 3 adult children. Yvonne is the youngest. Yvonne came home from school in 9th grade and she was putting her schedule together for the next year. And we said, what are you going to take? And she said, I want to take art. We said, great, take art. She said, yeah, they won't let me. I said, what do you mean they won't let you? Yeah, they'll be mad at me. They want me to take math. And at least in California where I live, children are now taking algebra in utero, so that by the end of 9th grade, somehow you can already have 4 years of high school math under your belt. And I said, well, you'll take more math in a couple of years when your schedule thins out, but take art. She says, no, they're not going to allow it. I said, I'll write a letter. Dear guidance counselor, please allow Yvonne to take art instead of math. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call. Unfortunately, the phone rang the next day and I answered it. And it was the guidance counselor who said, hi, I'm Yvonne's guidance counselor. We received your letter. I just want to let you know that we think it's a very bad idea for her to take art instead of math. I said, great, thanks for calling. And she goes, no, don't hang up. And I said, no, we'd actually like her to be in art instead of math. Yeah, we find it's very unconventional. Why? Well, if the kids skip math for a year, we find that it leaks out. Well, I don't subscribe to the math leaking theory. And I said, I really wish you'd honor our request as parents to let our child take art instead of math for 1 year. She said, this is very unusual. I'm going to have to talk to the principal or the Pope or something. So Yvonne took art that year, and then she took more math. She had a couple AP classes. She had pretty good grades. She had pretty good scores. She got accepted to 7 of the best liberal arts colleges in America because she was an interesting kid who did a lot of interesting things outside of school as well as inside school. She was at Bard College her first semester, and she took a bunch of humanities courses. Bard College is a place where they don't allow you to think about a major until the end of your 2nd year. You have to take courses in about 9 different disciplines. And she got a grade in one of her humanities classes that said Enigma on the report card. And she thought, oh, that's it. I got to take some classes that give me numbers. I can't handle this Enigma stuff. So the next semester she took calculus. Professor walked in and said, hi, I love calculus. I'm a mathematician. You're going to love it too. I'm so glad we're here together. This is going to be terrific. Yvonne got an A in university calculus, having never seen calculus before. I don't think she took trig in high school. And I remember when she got the A in calculus saying to her, you remember that time we let you take art instead of math? She said, yeah, why? I said, because if you had taken more math in your high school instead of art, you probably would have never gone near the calculus class again, let alone enjoyed it as much as you did. So when they spun the barrel of the gun behind her and put it to her head and said, now you have to pick a major, she said, art. And we went, oh, where'd that come from? You know, she was always crafty. She could knit and crochet and such. She taught herself. She started the knitting club in high school. It was the subject of her university essay. But, you know, like parents, you're insecure. You want the best for your kids. And she's getting A's in anthropology and computer science and calculus. Where did art come from? Well, of my 3 university-educated children, the only one who has had a full-time job with health benefits and an apartment every second since she graduated university was the art major. And she was concerned about her most recent job because she was going to have to tell her friends that she was a normie. A normie is someone who goes to the same place every day and does something for money, because she had worked in a nonprofit before that. But that hasn't limited her finding time and outlets for what she loves. The dress on the left is a dress she knit that walked New York Fashion Week last year. Someone called her 5 days before Fashion Week and said, we thought we could get someone else to do this. We can't. Any chance you can do it? So she worked all day, came home, and knit a dress that walked Fashion Week. And this semester, she enrolled at New York Institute of Technology, and she's taking an industrial knitting course where she's using 2-story high machines that are computer controlled to knit and weave and make fabric and to do things that I am confident her guidance counselor would never thought was a possibility. I have 2 friends who are professional television show carpenters. I don't mean they make things for television shows. I mean they make things on television. Pete Nelson, the Treehouse Master, and I have worked together a couple of times. Paulie DeMayo, the carpenter on Extreme Home Makeover, is a friend. Pete was an economics major in college. Again, I'm confident his school guidance counselor didn't tell him he could make 7 figures a year building tree houses on television. We have no idea what lies ahead. So, we need to do whatever it takes to become good at something. You need to do whatever it takes to become good at something. The best artists, scientists, entrepreneurs, business leaders, political figures are driven by what bugs them, and they have a laser-like persistent focus on fixing that which bugs them. We need to find mentors. You need to spend time in the company of interesting adults. And this is one of the big ideas. You need to get off the couch. I go to 50 to 80 concerts a year. And I'm active on social media. And I have 22,000 followers. Most of them are educators from around the world. And occasionally someone will say to me, wow, you go to a lot of concerts. How do you do that? I say, okay, do you have a piece of paper and a pencil? Are you ready? I buy tickets and I go. The reason why I've been able to work with all of my heroes, why I've been able to be at the right place at the right time, to have been engaged in some of the most pioneering, exciting work in educational technology over the last 35 years, is the reason why I met Mr. Rogers was because I went to where they were. You know, when I was in high school, I'll just end with this story. There's no clock, so I have no idea what time it is. When I was in high school, you know, I wanted to be a jazz musician. And the local college was only 23 miles from New York City, so they had a really fine jazz program. And there were about a dozen Sundays a year where there were world-class concerts that we went to as kids. And one Sunday, there was a concert that just blew my mind. And the funny thing about memory is I have no idea what it was. But I couldn't sleep that night, and all day in school the next day, I couldn't get the concert out of my head. I had just gotten my driver's license. This was 12th grade. And as soon as the bell rang at my high school, I threw my trumpet case in the trunk of the car, and I drove my car to the university, and I parked illegally, and I took my trumpet case out of the trunk, and I walked into the music building, and I put it down on the floor, and I sat on my trumpet case, and 15 seconds later, the doors to the rehearsal hall flung open, and this very large, imposing gentleman named Chico Mendoza, who was a local radio host and composer and band leader, said, "Hey kid, is that a trumpet?" And I sheepishly said, "Yes, it is, sir." He said, "Get in here." And as he was dragging me, just by sort of waving his arms, into the room, I was mumbling, "I don't go to school here. This might be a problem." And he pointed to the empty music stand and said, third. And I played the rehearsal and had the time of my life. And at the end of the rehearsal, I said, thank you very much, sir. It was a real honor to play with your band. And he said, you'll be here next week, right? I said, I don't go to school here. And he said, I don't care, I need a trumpet player. And then he found out that I wanted to be an arranger, and he came to my house and gave me lessons for free. And he paid me to copy the parts from the compositions he wrote for the band. And that in no small part led to the scholarship that I had to one of the best music conservatories in the country. And I've had a number of those kinds of experiences in my life where the kindness of a stranger, of someone of much higher stature, much greater accomplishment, has contributed in remarkable ways to my development. And the best advice that I can give any kids that I have the opportunity to talk with is find those people that matter to you. Send them a letter. Go to where they are. Realize not everyone uses Plurk or Skype or whatever the latest thing is. Some of your favorite authors actually write books longhand still. So you may actually have to write a physical letter or send a fax or talk to them when it's a convenient time for them. But people who are accomplished at what they do are great teachers because they have that laser-like focus on fixing something that bothers them. And as a result, they're able to articulate how it is that they do what they do. And they're quite willing to share what it is that they know with young people because they care about their work and their legacy continuing. You know, I've had the great privilege of knowing some really smart people, including some of the world's leading mathematicians. And one of the things that occurred to me was that no mathematician has ever made me feel stupid. I've met John Conway. I know Stephen Wolfram. I've worked with Seymour Papert and Marvin Minsky. But plenty of math teachers have made me feel stupid. And took a giant chunk out of my self-esteem as a kid. And told me that despite the fact that I was the best programmer any of them had ever seen, and that I'd been programming for 6 years before I graduated high school, I couldn't study computer science because I wasn't good at math. And then I couldn't continue being a music major because I didn't want to play the trumpet anymore. I wanted to compose, and that wasn't an option. You had to still keep playing an instrument. So you have the power within you to find the path that will allow you to reach your potential. You don't have to care about what other people care about. And in closing, you should just remember it's just school. Millions of people have survived it before you. You will too. Thank you very much.